Hello, everyone. It is so great to see you, parents. I hope you all have been doing well. I hope your spring break was great. Let me clear out my background just a little bit. Some chairs in the way. Anyway, I am going to start this presentation shortly. Today we are having a reading and comprehension presentation. I have invited once again Miss Latasha Ruff, or Tasha Ruff, as she likes to go by. She has been so helpful and just helping me with all of our workshops, and I'm so excited to have her back and to help us out. So first, I'm going to drop in the chat the sign-in sheet. So if you can, just bear with me. You want to make sure that you are signing in so that you receive credit for these workshops, so we can send you out some amazing gifts to show our appreciation for having you on. And also, let's go ahead and start with our vision and mission statement. Alrighty. So the vision of Rexmill Middle STEM School is to be a school of high performance, preparing all students to live and compete successfully in a science and technology-driven society where there is an appreciation for the arts. The mission of Rexmill Middle STEM School is to motivate our community to live inspired and purposeful lives through intentional exposure to the arts, science, technology, and mathematical practices. So now that I have covered our important things like our vision and our mission, we're going to bring on Ms. Latasha Ruff, and she is going to start with her presentation.
Good afternoon.
Hello. How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
I sure can. How are you doing?
I am struggling with allergies, so if I sound like someone's uncle, I need everybody to forgive me for that, okay?
All right.
But good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Latasha Ruff. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor for North Carolina. And Ms. Diston has been so just great to work with. And every month, coming up with a theme that will give you all relevant information and then kind of normalizing the impact that mental health can have on some of the normal things that we experience from day to day. So she provided this excellent article, which is going to be the basis of what we're talking about today. And it's all about reading comprehension for our little people, right? And so the article is What the Words Say by Emily Hanford. This is the link for it. And do you send this information out, or
I can drop the link as you can go ahead and I'll copy the link and I'll make sure that I share it with the parents as well.
Okay. You all want to make sure that you are reading this. It's going to have you in all of the feels, right? So you're going to feel shocked. Some of it is going to resonate with you, like, yeah, that's about right. That's the way it goes. Some of it is going to make you feel probably a little angry, but more importantly, I hope that it does serve as a source of inspiration, to kind of like a call to action. What can we do to regroup, if necessary, and then how can we help our parents and teachers, and more importantly, our students, so that they can be successful, right? So the article starts with introducing Sonia Thomas and her son, CJ. He was in the first grade when she realized that he had some type of issue with reading comprehension, that he was struggling, which was very different from his older three siblings who had no issues in this regard. And so, like I said, it was about in the first grade when she mentioned it to the school officials. And it sounds as if nothing was done. And so in about the seventh grade, they transitioned him to another school. And at that school, the administrator said, hey, we need to have a conversation with you because your son is reading at a fourth grade level. So she was completely devastated. And so it pushed her to start this organization here, Propel. Propel stands for Parents Requiring our public school system to lead, our public education system to lead. And so these parents just have banded together to make this issue well known across the board and to assist in providing resources in their area. It's based out of Nashville. Some of the other things that were in the article that are worth bringing out is the conversation between how do we teach kids how to read? Do we focus on decoding or do we focus on language comprehension? And with the decoding, that's more of the sight words. You know, everybody is familiar with that. Um, when the kids are younger, they might come home, you know, with CH as the sound of the day kind of a situation, and then all of the words with CH and what those various sounds are like are going to be the sight words. So to be like church and school, you know, things of that nature. So that's one train of thought is that we teach kids how to decode. So if they know the sound of words, then that are represented by the letters, then they'll be able to read and comprehend. And there's another school of thought that says that it's all about language comprehension. And that if we teach children what the meaning of the word is, then they will be able to figure out what the words say. I personally think that you need both of them, but you know, whatever works best is that's kind of the argument in the article. Um, One of the other things that she talked about was this concept of the African American English as a dialect of standard American English. And she also linked that with other students who come from backgrounds where Spanish is their native language, or Arabic, or even Korean, and that those students have to kind of work a little bit harder to decode the meanings and kind of do that code switching, so that they move from the language that they know to the language that is being spoken to them. And one of the examples that she gave was there was a language pathologist who read the story "Are You My Mama" to a 4-year-old Black girl, and then she asked the little girl to retell the story to her. And so the little girl's response was, "Is you my mama? I ain't none of your mama." um, and instead of kind of making any type of disparaging remarks about the little girl's spoken English, the speech pathologist was very, I guess, in awe of how much work goes into children who have to code switch, because you know they have to translate from the language that they are used to the language that is being spoken to them. So it takes a little bit more work, which might mean that children, if your district is filled with individuals who speak a dialect of English, that they might need more time, more help, more support, kind of a thing as they work through that. And then, of course, the idea of code switching was introduced in a kind of different connotation than um, you know, in the work environment where when you're with a group of friends that you feel comfortable talking with, you speak this way. And then when you get in front of your more professional colleagues, then you talk a different way. It's the typical way we really think about code switching, but they introduced the concept that um, code switching might not be necessary for Black children who are in middle or upper class families because uh, they might not be speaking African American English at home, or any other dialect. So as a result, they don't have to do that work as hard to translate, so to speak. Um, One of the other things that she talked about in this article was the disparities amongst the rich and the poor, specifically highlighting the differences between Black and white, or people of color versus white students. And the thought was that white children who are attending schools where are typically attending schools where there are more successes across the board. And so a white student who is struggling in reading might be more recognizable than if you're in uh, poorer school system and the students are primarily Black or students of color, then one kid who is struggling to read might blend in with all of the other kids with all of the behavioral issues and that kind of a thing. And then the last thing that was really one of the most interesting things was just what the federal law says about offering supports in terms of special education, defining what a learning disability is. And so the problem is that the federal law states that it is not a learning disability if the learning problem is a result of an economic disadvantage. And so that places a lot of Black students at a disadvantage because then they are turned away from receiving special education services because of the socioeconomic status that they might fall in. Um, and so she kind of goes over what the purpose of that law was, really just to kind of prevent low income children of color from being over identified as needing special education. And the opposite of that is that white children are just more likely to receive those services as a result of this type of law. Um, so now we get into, with that as the backdrop, just kind of talking about how does reading impact mental health? Because there are some serious, significant cognitive, behavioral, and motivational impacts that come from being able to read, or more importantly, not being able to read. And the primary thing is that there is this constant sense of failure that convinces the individual who is struggling to read that they themselves are a failure. Not that they're a poor reader, but that they are a failure. And what that ends up doing is it brings into play an exacerbation of symptoms in anxiety and depression, which impacts your mood and attendance issues. If it looks like I'm failing, or I am a failure, then why should I attend this at all? And then it goes to the other issue of a student being in class and not really paying attention because they are anxious or depressed about maybe being called on or not understanding what's taking place, and having to go through the whole stigma of I'm not dumb kind of thing, but yet and still feeling as if they are a failure. And then what that sense of failure presents in them and internally would be extreme senses of shame, self-esteem, and a lack of confidence. And then you move into limited participation in all subjects because you know that reading is not just a part of the ELA block. Reading is a part of this is supposed to be math. We're supposed to be using numbers, but it's a word problem. And then you go into social studies and how do you learn about other cultures if you aren't reading about them? And then you go to history and then you're reading a biography and then you go into science and you got to read how much of this chemical you need to mix with that chemical in order to create this type of reaction. So reading transcends all subjects, and as a result, you'll have students who they become the bully so that they aren't being bullied, so to speak. And so you want to be mindful of all of these things that are taking place. And then, of course, the most egregious implication is how a lack of reading and this internalization of I am a failure, how it is that pipeline from no school to jail or prison. And then ultimately, that this person will have fewer choices than someone who is able to read and, more importantly, comprehend what they're reading and then not feel as if they are a failure because they are able to understand the world around them, participate in the conversations that are taking place because they understand what is taking place because their vocabulary has expanded because they are able to successfully read. So what can we do? Ultimately, we need to come from the standpoint that the responsibility has to be shared. It is not solely the parents' responsibility to do these things, but it's also parents, not solely the school's responsibility as well. You have to send your children prepared for the educational environment, right? And then schools have to create an environment that's conducive to learning and all those kind of things. So here on my list, what I've highlighted as more important is parents remembering that you're your child's first advocate, right? So, like this mom, she recognized Tanya Thomas from the article. She recognized in the first grade that her son was struggling, and she mentioned it to the proper authorities, but then there was no follow up, right? And so you want to make sure that you might need to become that squeaky wheel if you've recognized that your child needs more support, right? And then you have to be comfortable with seeking professional help because maybe Big Mama just can't handle this, right? Maybe this is something where you need to get a therapist involved, whether it's a mental health professional because you've recognized that your child's emotions have and motivation has decreased, or if it's going to your primary care physician, and starting the conversation there, like, hey, I've noticed this about my child when they're doing those routine checkups and following through with the resources that are provided to you there. Also, you have to get out of the notion of I can't afford it, because most organizations have either sliding scales or they're offering these services pro bono because they've received grant funding, or they can write it off as a tax deduction or whatever the case may be. And it goes back to that first point that you're your child's first advocate. So doing your due diligence to find a program that supports where it is that you all are, right? Um, you want to make sure that you're creatively incorporating reading options into your daily routine. So my children will come to me and they'll say, what's the answer to blah, blah, blah? And I'll say, Google it. Um, because I'm teaching them to do the research on their own, right? But then I'm also following up like, well, what did Google say? Making sure that they are recognizing the words that they're reading, that they're understanding, and we can have a conversation once they've done the work, right? We also do games in our family where because my children are very active. So my son, he's in 3 sports. My daughter is a competitive gymnast. And we're in the car a lot, traveling to different meets, right? And so we're in the car. We'll play games like the ABC game. So anything outside of the car is fair game. And as we pass by either license plates, bumper stickers, billboards, signages on the side of buildings, whatever, I might say, oh, there's an A in CarMax, but it's causing me to look for an A and then read the word aloud so that I can get the point for it. And sometimes we cheat and say we won't try to find a Q, X, or a Z because those letters are hard to come by. But doing that type of stuff in your own home to make sure that your child is where they need to be. And then of course you want to be proactive. So she probably noticed something before the first grade, but it was in the first grade when she spoke up about it. But then just making sure that you stick with whatever it is that you've seen so that your child gets the support that they need. And then it's going to be very, very, very important for you to know your child's teacher, um, and know the administration even, right? It is not enough for you to just put your child on the bus and send them to school and think that that's sufficient. You want to make sure that you're introducing yourself to your child's teacher and having those conversations, showing up for those parent-teacher conferences, even asking for them on your own if you're noticing something with your own child, right? And then on the school side, while the parent might be the first advocate, you still need to advocate for your parents and more importantly for the children that you all are fostering during that 9:15 zone, right? And then creating a list of resources, because a lot of times you all are aware of educational opportunities. You know that the Park District is having a 6-week, summer special for reading comprehension or whatever it is that you are aware of. Just creating a database of up-to-date current resources. Maybe a speech pathologist who was willing to take 5 free cases a year, and then signing up your the more severe cases that you come across, introducing, making that connection, that soft handoff for that kind of a thing. It's going to be really important for school systems to not make any assumptions. That means that you can't be focused only on the behavior, because little man might be acting up because he can't read, and as opposed to labeling him as the problem kid, kind of using your skills of observation, which is the next bullet point, to kind of ferret out what else could really be going on. And then also not making those assumptions because, oh, they're poor or, oh, they're rich. So these things come along with either of those kind of a situation. And then lastly, you want to be as creative as possible with incorporating and building your students' reading skills as much as possible. I have seen some amazing things that educators have done, things that I'm like, wow. I mean, it's just, I don't even know how y'all come up with this stuff. And I'm amazed and applaud your efforts. But staying creative, maybe linking it to what's taking place in pop culture so that the kids are interested. And then, of course, that comes with really, really, really understanding who your target audience is. So if you taught at the private school last year and now you're in a Title I school this year, you might want to recognize that there might be some differences, even in the type of parenting interaction that you're going to have, and then making sure that you're adjusting and being creative to address that adjustment, if that makes sense. So that concludes my part of it. These are the ways that you can stay connected with me. You can definitely seek me out on my website. There connect with me options there. And then you can always email me directly. I'm happy to respond to any questions or concerns that you might have. And my social media, I have to be very honest, I am horrible at social media. I think I'm going to hire an intern to assist me with building up that part of it, but I do have them. So you can definitely reach out to me there as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to Ms. Diston.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Tasha. I have, you were talking about how being creative is like a very important part of it. And with the reading comprehension and everything and trying to understand how to get middle schoolers involved in something where they're understanding reading and also the comprehension, I came up with this little game and I'm going to share it with everyone. Hold on one second. I'm going to share it in the chat real quick with you guys. So if you want to have a copy of it and use it, you can. And then I'm going to share it on my screen as well. It's a game I came up with. It's called Play on Words. And basically how it works is you will have your student pick a letter. So if you were to pick a letter of the alphabet, let's just say the letter H, you'll have them circle the letter H. After that, they are going to pick a number between 3 and 10. So if they want to try it and make sure that it's easy, I would suggest doing a number 3 to 6, intermediate 5 to 8, and hard 7 to 10. But we're going to keep it easy, and we're just going to say number 4. So now I'm going to charge the student or whoever I'm having playing this game to write down 6 words that begin with the letter that you chose, and that's also the length of the number that you chose. So with that being said, here are a few words that starts with the letter H, and they're 4 letters long. So now, once you do that, you are now charged to write down 2 different words for each vowel. So for example, you'll use the same letter that you chose in the same length, but the second letter has to begin with the vowel. So your word will be H-A, H-E, H-I, H-O, H-U, depending on whichever word you decide to choose. So here's another example of what that will look like. So from here, get into another stage of the game. And you can actually time this with your students or with your children to see how well they can go from the list. So on the next stage of the game, it's called letter switch. Keeping the first letter the same and the length the same, change one letter to make a new word. So you're basically going to use the words that you came up with on page 3 and page 4 and create new words. And I didn't fill out the whole list, but I did give an example of each. So because we chose the word hair, we could just change the letter A to an E and we have the word air. Same thing with hose. Change the S to a P, it turns into hope. Heat, change the T to a L, heal. Halt, change the last letter L to a T, haul to halt. So that's the new, once you come up with this new letter switch words, then you are going to now do a rhyme time. You will take the words that you just recently created on the switch from page 5, and you will now rhyme it with any word. Now this word can begin with any letter and it can be any length. So as long as it rhymes, that's all that matters. So now you have air and you have where. You have hope and you have pope. You have heal and wheel, halt and malt. So you just play it however best works for you. And you could time it just to make it fun. And to add a little bonus, are there any other words in relation to the list based on the following? Do they sound the same but spelled different? Sound different but spelled the same? So you have air and air, where and where and where, and hell and hell, just to give an example, and that can give you bonus points. And just to make it even a little bit more fun, for an extra bonus points, you can actually create an 8 to 16 bar rap with your word list and just have fun with it. So that's the little play on words game that I came up with. I do thank you all for attending. I have dropped the link in the chat. If you are interested in playing that game, make sure you download that Canva and you can use it in your classroom. You can use it at home, however it works for you. And then make sure that you also sign in to get credit for this workshop. I would like to thank Ms. Tasha for coming out and assisting me today with our reading and comprehension workshop. Also, make sure you check out that article that I dropped in the link. It is a great read, and it is a good place to start with helping our students learning how to comprehend the things that they are reading. So if you don't have any questions, which I don't see any questions at the moment, I want to thank you all. Once again, you have my email address, and I'm going to post it real quick just so if you need to reach out to me, you can. Here is my email here. And if you have not had a chance to fill out the Title I survey, please make sure you visit our Facebook page. It is the first link at the top. It is pinned. So just make sure you go through that whole presentation and fill out the survey for the Title I School and Parent Compact and the input meeting, and also the one for the Title I school survey. All righty. Well, I hope you all have a great day. Thank you all for attending, and take care.